Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and today we go on to episode 17 of our Clone Wars history series. We're nearing the end of the first year of the Clone Wars. The GAR and their Jedi leaders so far have been fighting hard to plug various holes in the sinking ship that is the Republic. The Separatists have been methodically destroying and taking over Outer Rim worlds, meanwhile they're stretching the Republic forces beyond their limits, forcing the GAR to pick and choose which worlds they can save, which not only affects the credibility of the Republic, but the loyalty of its member states. It also increases support for a larger Republic military, which helps Palpatine's end goal. But in the last few episodes, we've seen the Republic change their strategy. Instead of using their most elite forces to put out the various fires in the Outer Rim, the Jedi have been sent after the top agents of the Separatist Alliance. And this kind of makes sense because the Separatist army is made up mainly of droids and mercenaries, and if you can cut off the head of the snake, you can probably severely limit their ability to fight back. So far though, the Republic has failed to detain Viceroy Newt Gunray, General Grievous, and even Asajj Ventress. But the real prize was actually Count Dooku, the Serrano noble known for his political wit and statesmanship. He was the head of state for the Separatist Alliance, and to add insult to injury, also a former Jedi. If the Republic are able to bring him in, there's the possibility that the entire Separatist Alliance might just collapse. Count Dooku was an incredibly dangerous individual, very capable of defending himself. During the Battle of Geonosis, he had disarmed Anakin and defeated his master Obi-Wan Kenobi with relative ease. Since that battle though, Anakin has grown quite a lot as a swordsman and Jedi. Anakin would actually meet Count Dooku again on Tatooine while trying to rescue Retta the Hutt. This time he was able to duel Count Dooku with much better results. Count Dooku's Mikasi Form 2 lightsaber technique was incredibly dangerous and specifically suited for dueling other Force users. Only Anakin and a handful of other Jedi had any experience against this form, and now that Anakin had dueled Dooku and survived on 2 occasions, he was the obvious choice to lead a mission to hunt down the Separatist leader. And so that's exactly who the Jedi Council sent, but this time around they're going to copy some Separatist tactics and try to trick them. They decide to allow Anakin Skywalker to get captured by a Separatist frigate where they believe Count Dooku is hiding. While on board, Anakin would confirm whether Count Dooku was on that ship, and wait for Obi-Wan Kenobi to arrive and free him so the two could go capture the Count. And that's exactly what they do. They're able to conveniently walk through the frigate without encountering any resistance and arrive to Count Dooku's meditation chambers while a Republic cruiser arrives in system and starts attacking the frigate from outside. The Count's meditation pad, however, is an escape slide, which looks like a lot of fun. The slide leads straight down to the hangar, and once again Count Dooku manages to escape from the Republic. Anakin and Obi-Wan pursue the Separatist leader in their own ship towards a nearby planet. Both Dooku and the Jedi ship manage to get damaged, and they both execute a crash landing, something that Anakin has become quite an expert at doing. Luckily, the Jedi crash right next to Count Dooku's ship, but upon examining it, they can't find the Sith Lord. The Jedi do see a cave nearby and decide to go and investigate. Now, the Jedi don't realize they've crashed on the planet known as Vancor. Luckily for them, most planets in Star Wars seem to be habitable and have breathable air for humans, which means that the Jedi don't really need any protective gear, which I'm sure they don't have. It's a relatively boring looking planet from space. It looks pretty gray, and that's because of these gigantic silica clouds and storms that blow across the surface. The actual planet's surface was covered in crystalline formations, some of which extended further underground into cave systems. Despite the planet's relatively lifeless surface, there was actually a lot of fauna beneath the surface. The Jedi, after going just a few hundred feet inside the cave, get ambushed by Count Dooku, who causes a cave-in and sends giant rocks crashing down on top of the Jedi. Anakin gets pinned, and Count Dooku uses the Force to take his lightsaber, and then seals the 2 Jedi inside the cave with another cave-in. Once outside, Dooku arrives to see the pirate Ohnaka and his gang of pirates examining his crashed solar sailor. Dooku strikes a deal with the pirates, and they agree to take him to a nearby world called Florum. Meanwhile, back in the cave, Obi-Wan and Anakin must find their way out and find themselves under attack by one of the local inhabitants, the terrifying Gundarks. These are angry red monsters with 6 limbs, including 2 gigantic forearms with giant dagger-like claws. To make matters worse, they were just intelligent enough to learn how to throw giant rocks and use melee weapons. Normally, 1 Gundark would be tough enough for 2 Jedi armed with lightsabers, but Anakin had lost his to Dooku, and Obi-Wan's lightsaber was damaged and no longer working properly. While the Gundark is chasing Anakin around the cave, Obi-Wan Kenobi uses the Force to stun the Gundark with a giant rock. The two then just cover the Gundark completely with more rocks. But while trying to clear other rocks from the cave entrance, the two Jedi cause some toxic gas to spew out of the ground. Luckily, Ahsoka Tano once again arrives just in time with some clone troopers to save the day. Meanwhile, Hondo Ohnaka brings Dooku to Florham, which also happens to be the location of the pirates' hideout. While in transit, Hondo's lizard monkey pet thing steals Count Dooku's lightsaber, which makes Hondo think that Count Dooku might be a Jedi. This offends Count Dooku, and he reveals that he's a Sith Lord, and an important one at that. He explains that the Separatists would pay a lot of money for a safe return. Hondo, of course, was a lot smarter than your average pirate, and probably heard of a certain Trandoshan scavenger who had made a deal to turn over an R2 unit to General Grievous and got a terrible deal in exchange. Or maybe Hondo had heard about a Senate commando who had betrayed the Republic for the Separatists, but also got a terrible deal. Hondo realized if he told the Separatist Alliance where Count Dooku was, they would probably just bring their army and crush the pirate gang. So instead he decides to turn Count Dooku over to the Republic. Outnumbered and without his sword, Dooku has no choice but to surrender to the pirates. Hondo contacts Palpatine and asks for 1 million credits worth of spice for the Separatist leader. But the Republic decides that they need to send 2 Jedi of their own to verify that the Count has indeed been captured first before paying. Palpatine naturally doesn't believe in the pirate and is against the whole thing. After all, Dooku is secretly his apprentice. The last thing he really needs is Dooku getting captured by the Republic. The Jedi Council sent Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin, who are already pretty close to Florham already, on the mission. The only caveat is they can't bring their weapons to the pirates' base, but that wasn't much of a problem because neither of them had access to working lightsabers in the first place. But of course, nothing is ever straightforward when you encounter pirates like Hondo. The 2 Jedi are able to confirm that Dooku was in fact in the custody of Hondo's pirates. With their mission complete, however, the 2 Jedi let their guard down a bit and are drugged by the pirates. Look, as a rule, Generation Tech frowns upon any kind of racism against our fellow man, but it's pretty reasonable to be suspicious of certain types of alien races and just, call them scumbags, because they are scumbags. For instance, you never would park your speeder in an area heavily infested by Jawas, you would never stand around a Gungan when they're operating heavy machinery, and you would never attend a Weequay banquet because Weequays are degenerates and they're almost never up to any good, and also never found in any non-criminal related enterprise. Like most sketchy individuals in the galaxy, the Weequay came from a homeworld that was incredibly rough and gave them very limited opportunities. Luckily for the Weequays, they had extremely thick, leathery skin that was semi-blaster resistant that made them relatively useful as hired muscle. The ones that became pirates, like Hondo, were relatively cunning and were never really satisfied with just a fair deal. They always wanted more. Which is why the Weequay also drug Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the 2 Jedi wake up in a detention cell chained to Count Dooku. Now, Hondo is a pretty smart individual, but when he gets greedy, it turns him into a complete moron. Not only does he want a ransom for Count Dooku, he also wants an additional ransom for the Jedi as well. Little does he know, keeping 1 Sith Lord in captivity is hard enough without having to worry about 2 additional Jedi as well. The Weequay probably had too much confidence in his own men's ability to contain the dangerous Force users. They were hardly loyal at all to him or competent at their jobs, and predictably, his own men started plotting against him. The Republic sends Senator Binks from Naboo and Karas from Malastare with a clone attachment to the planet to retrieve Dooku, along with 1 million credits worth of spice for ransom. But upon entering the planet's atmosphere, a pirate ship shoots them down. Some of Hondo's men want the spice for themselves. Senator Karas dies along with most of the clones accompanying them. It should be noted that Senator Binks uses his dark side force powers to sabotage the pilots, causing the ship to crash, most likely on behalf of Palpatine's demands. The Weequay traders attempt to recover the spice, but find that some clones have survived the attack. Funny enough, after the death of Karas, the Dark Sith Lord Binks was now in charge of the mission. Clone Commander Stone was clearly the better choice, but as a clone, he did defer to the traditional chain of command. The Weequays managed to grab the spice, but the clones managed to survive the engagement as well. They now must find a way to chase after the pirates, and decide to use some local fauna as mounts and manage to recover the spice before the traitor Weequay arrived back to their compound. Meanwhile, Count Dooku and the Jedi had already failed to escape once and were now attempting a second escape. This is kind of an interesting sequence where Dooku and the Jedi are basically throwing insulting one-liners at each other while trying to maintain some stealth. While trying to scale a wall on their way out of the compound, the trio get discovered once again. Count Dooku is knocked off the wall and almost falls to his death, but Obi-Wan saves his life for some stupid reason. If only knew how much more destruction would be caused by this war because of Count Dooku. Anyway, Dooku and the Jedi are captured for a 3rd time by Hondo before they are able to escape. Meanwhile, the traitor Wike convinces Hondo that the Republic has sent an army to recover the hostage. Hondo believes him for some reason and sends a bunch of pirates armed with tanks to stop the Republic forces. Commander Stone, who is pretty sharp for a clone, sends out the Sith Lord Gungan to negotiate with the pirates, knowing that the Gungan will somehow defeat them using his force powers. And that's exactly what happens. The Wike decide to take the Gungan and use him as another hostage, but the Gungan sends one of the tanks crashing into a nearby power grid, which knocks out the energy for the entire pirate compound. I mean, it's a really bad design for a base if you really think about it, but I guess they are pirates and not engineers. Meanwhile, while Jar Jar distracts everyone, the clones take out the remaining pirates and take over the pirate tanks. With the power cut, the Jedi and Dooku are freed from their cells and manage to escape all on their own. There's a lot of things you can learn from this episode, but the one thing that I really learned was that Jar Jar Binks is definitely a Sith Lord. Anyway, guys, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And as usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.